Okay, Shava'ato B'nun Het Amud Aleph, a few lines from the bottom by two dots. Mishnah said in the case of Yarda Kidarakav Hezikam Zidikav, they went down to the garden usually and then just damaged. You pay for the damage. You should have stopped it from going. What if it went down as usual into the garden and walked in, but then it damaged it by giving birth or almost giving birth, and the fluids from the birthing process damage the fruits? What's the halacha? Aliba the manamar of one. It's according to the opinion that holds hayav. According to the opinion holds that if you start off with negligence, you end up with a mistake. You're hayav. Lo tibarach. Obvious. He's for sure hayav. Kitibarach. What's the question? Aliba the manamar of one is patur. The one who holds that in that scenario you're patur. My. What over here? What would he hold? What over here? What would he hold? Me and do we say Kevin honest since it's a regular case of negligence than an accident patur? Odim over here is more machmir. He was completely negligent. The Kevin the Kahazi the Kreva Lanedat, Ibai la Natura Istimure Begava. He said, or maybe over here you're even extra ultra negligent because you knew it was about to give birth, and therefore you should have been extra careful with it. Take them. The case you pay for the damage, to buckle in for some little math. How do we know that you pay for what you damage? You pay for what your animal consumed in your friend's field. You evaluate it versus a larger field, right? The Mishnah mentioned you evaluate it versus a bet. Okay. 1 second. That pasuk, we use it to teach you that you're patur from gender regel in public. If that's the case, the Torah should have said in his friend's field, or just someone else's field. Why did it say Therefore, that must be teaching you the fact that it said it like that, teach you that you do it in another larger field. Okay. Maybe you might say that the entire pasuk is teaching you this and not and not to exclude. How do we know that it means both? If that's the case, it'll only teach you about hilchot nizikin of how you evaluate. It only would have mentioned it by the cases of payment. Like, for example, metas metat karmo shalem bisde acher. Why did it mention by the part where it consumed it to teach you to teach you both halachot? That's how you evaluate it as well. How do we evaluate the betzah itself? Three-way machloket. Amar Rabbi Yosef bar Hanina se'ah b'shishim. A se'ah, se'ah b'shishim se'in. You evaluate the betzah in regards to 60, right? Times 60, which means you take you do a double calculation. First, you take a betzah and you do a 60th of that, right? So basically, if let's say you do a 60th of that. So meaning if you have a betzah cost you $15, but if you would sell it with 60 others, it would cost 600 total, which basically means you're only worth 10, right? If you do it in wholesale, practically, right? So Rayana says tarkav b'shishim tarkabain. A bet tarkav, which is a half a sa'ah, so every 2 tarkavs is 1 sa'ah, is comparable to 60 bet tarkavs, right? Which is basically same math, but just half of that, doubled. Right, so therefore, if 1 bet tarkav is worth 6 coins, and 1 bet sa'ah is worth 12 coins, you have to see how much the price of 12 for bet sa'ah would be before and after the depreciation of the damage. Fine. We do 1 stalk comparable to 60 stalks. Right, so you would evaluate how much 60 stalks would cost. So 60 times the amount the animal ate, and then the price, how much it would cost the field lost that amount. Okay. If the animal only ate a kav or 2 kabaim or 2 calves, you don't just pay how much it'll cost. We rather review it as if its own row. We evaluate how much that row cost. Sounds like you evaluate by itself, not the times 60, the whole math according to the 3 opinions. If says no, that's true. You do by the 60. Each opinion holds how they what the evaluation they do. Sa'ah, betzah, datakav, etc. Random, interesting braita that we have to dissect. You don't evaluate a kav because it profits the guy who damaged, ולא מבית כור בפני פגמו, because you don't evaluate peg core because it hurts the one who damaged. So come on, what's going on? אמר לו פחד כמר. אין שם מין קו ב-60 קווים, you don't evaluate one cov in relation to 60 קווים, מפני שמשביח מזיק, because that helps the damager, right? So according to the Papa, he holds that if you were to teach that a cov was destroyed and you should evaluate it times 60, it would be worth less, because now, quote unquote, wholesale would cost you less. And below core b'shishim korim, but you don't evaluate a core in relation to 60 cores. Mipnei shepogim mazik. And you don't do one core into 60 cores, which is a massive map property, because it damages the damager, right? Because a field that has 60 cores is tremendous, and only wealthy people pay for it, and therefore, the guy wants to pay for this property, he'll pay a crazy amount of money, and therefore, if you're going to do a 60th of that, it'll hurt the damager. How come the Mishnah or the Braita rather talks about two separate cases, bet kor and kav? It should have kept the uniform kav and bet kor, kav and bet kav, or kor and bet kor. Where it says, you don't evaluate a kav by itself. Because that profits the damagee. Right? If you do one kav by itself, it's very expensive. Below kav bet kor, and you don't evaluate a kav in relation to bet kor, because that will have damagee. Rather, you evaluate it in regards to 60. That's the most fair. Okay. Guy cut down the friend's palm tree. He came in for the Resh Galuta. The Resh Galuta was the rabbi in charge of the city, but not always was he a big Talmid Chacham. Amarle told him, he was posek. I see that the tree cut down. It was a pack of 3 trees, and together they were worth $100. Therefore, now that you cut one down, pay him 33.3. The damager said, why do I have to go to Bedin if the Resh Galuta is in the judges for the Persian law? Meaning you're paying exactly what you damaged. We don't hold like that. All right, no offense, Ozzy. So he's basically complaining the rabbi doesn't know the halacha. And the Babylonians were under the Persian law, under Persian rule. That's why they had these rabbis in charge. He's right. You don't do 1/3, you do in relation to 60. If you say that the evaluation is based off 1 to 60, based off the guy who damaged, would you say that it only applies where the guy himself damaged? Meaning, I know you do 160 when my ox damaged, but you hold 160 when the guy himself damages? What's your reason that you don't hold where the guy himself does damage? Tell me, right off. If someone damaged his friend's vineyard while it was still growing, right? So it wasn't yet grapes, it was still growing, budding. You review how much this was worth, the vineyard was worth before the damage, and how much it was worth after the damage. If it doesn't mention anything about 60. But regarding the animal, it doesn't say that. Tanya. If your animal damaged a young tree that belongs to someone else, those who make the halachot in Yerushalayim say, a tree in its first year, you pay two pieces of silver. In the second year tree, you pay 4 silver, right? We see like set prices. Knas. But if it ate new grain, you judge by how much is left. You review how much the land was worth before the damage happened, becoming a fund, how much it's worth now, and you pay that difference. If you ate the budding grapes, you use them as if they're ready to be plucked, and therefore how much they're worth when they're ripe. How much was worth before and after the land was damaged. All right, so we see, regardless how you hold, that you don't evaluate how much it cost, but how much it was part of the land. According to the first opinion, you hold that you evaluate the land where the animal ate the grapevines or the fig trees. But if you ate it while it wasn't ripe yet, you hold it as if they were already ripened. So now, after all said and done, we still see said, you view how much the land was before and after. You don't hold 60% like we do back in animal damage. Rather, we say that regardless, even though the Mishnah didn't mention it, even though when the animal damaged, you didn't mention 60, so too over here we do 60. So too when a person damaged, you do 60. Basically said that if you damage unripe grain, you pay what it would have been worth at harvest time. That we say is equal to Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shmuel. Sorry, Rabbi Shmuel. Basically, we mentioned it. Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Shmuel is the following: Metav sedu, metav karmoish, and Pasuk says you shall pay from the best field or vineyard. So people think that you're paying according to what the damagee owns. Rather, metav sedu shenizak, metav karmoish shenizak. According to the opinion you hold, you're paying according to the damager's best property. David Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Akiva says. Torah is teaching you that when you're collecting damages, you pay from the damager's best land. The Kavahamar the Hekdesh, and obviously when the Hekdesh is collecting. So now the Gemara says, Rabbi Shmuel similarly said earlier that if even if you damage the worst part, you pay from the best part, pay on the best part. You don't hold that Rabbi Shmuel holds like Rabbi Barvin. The Amar Rabbi Barvin. If the animal ate from a random row. You don't know which row. You don't know whether that row was part of the row next to it, which is a bad product, low value, or the high value next to it. In that case, you'd be able to tell. In that case, Rabbi Shmuel would say you're paying for rich regardless. Based on the good property you have next to it. Because we don't say this. You can't automatically say, oh, pay from the best one. No. If you want to pay better, prove that I damaged the better. Therefore, rather you pay on the best in front of you. What does that mean? You mention you pay what would have been the property cost had it had a chance to ripen. Right. So you damaged my cake while I was in the oven. Right. You don't pay me based on the flour and stuff. You would have paid me how much I'd be able to sell the cake for, how much for the cake would have been worth. And over here also regarding the fruit, that's not Hamase. Regarding the fruit also, if the grapes would have been able to sell better when it was ripened, obviously you'd have to pay that value.